along. I'll finish the chapter. You guys can start reading when we get into the 13th chapter into a new area. Verse 14 we read last week. Now for the third time I am ready to come to you, and I will not be burdensome to you, for I do not seek yours but you. For the children ought not to lay up for the parents, but the parents for the children. And I will very gladly spend and be spent for your souls, though more abundantly I love you, the less I am loved. But be that as it may, I did not burden you. Nevertheless, being crafty, I caught you by cunning. Did I take advantage of you by any of those who I sent to you? I urged Titus and sent our brother with him. Did Titus take advantage of you? Did we not walk in the same spirit? Did we not walk in the same steps? Again, do you think that we excuse ourselves to you? We speak before God in Christ, but we do all things, beloved, for your edification. For I fear lest when I come I shall not find you such as I wish, and that I shall be found by you such as you do not wish, lest there be contentions, jealousies, outbursts of wrath, selfish ambitions, backbiting, whispering, conceits, tumults, lest when I come again my God will humble me among you, and I shall mourn for many who have sinned before and have not repented of the uncleanness, fornication, and lewdness which they have practiced. All right, we didn't get into all of that last week, but we did read it. Again, I know it sounds like a broken record, but Paul is continuing on with the same line of thought, clearing up the false accusations that were brought against him. In verses 14 and 15 that we talked about last week, Paul mentioned how that he cared for them. He had no intention of taking any money from them. He didn't want to be a burden to them. And then how that he would be gladly spend and be spent for their souls, though the more abundantly I love you, the less I am loved. Well, that's just one of the outcomes. It just seems like the more you do for some people, the less they appreciate it, and that does happen. But now we get into this next section that we haven't discussed. Verse 16 says, but be that as it may, even though that's the way it is, I did not burden you. Nevertheless, being crafty, I caught you by cunning. You know, here's something interesting. It's one thing about false teachers. False teachers will accuse you of something. And when it seems like you've solved that and answered it, they'll come back with some other false accusation. So basically, Paul didn't take your money. He's really not an apostle, and so on. And now Paul has to come back and say, and so since I didn't take it, I really did end up taking it in a cunning way by sending Titus. And it's kind of like Paul has to come back and say, did he take advantage of it? Yeah, again, it just compounds. It's like people won't let up, even though you answer. And of course, the same thing happened with Jesus. Jesus would defend himself. You would think, he would answer their arguments, and they didn't know how to respond, so they would walk away. So were they convinced who he was? No. They would just wait for another opportunity, and that's what these guys are doing. And so let's not think that if you answer a false teacher, if you answer a false accuser, that's going to solve everything. It's not going to solve everything. When people have a bad attitude and they want it that way, you're not going to change them. What you want to do is make sure that they don't influence other people. That's what Paul's doing. He's trying to nip it. And so because of that, he says in verse 17, did I take advantage of you by any of those who I sent to you? You answer this question. Forget those false teachers right now. Did I take advantage of you? No, not in the least bit. I urged Titus and sent our brother with him. Did Titus take advantage of you? Did we not walk in the same spirit? Did we not walk in the same steps? You saw the similarities, did you not, when he was with you? Again, verse 19, do you think that we excuse ourselves to you? But we speak before God in Christ, but we do all things, beloved, for your edification. Look at this verse. Take it to heart. This is what teachers need to do. Problem with some teachers today is that they tell people what they want to hear. Try to please their audience. Same token, we should be mindful of wanting to build you up. But Paul's saying something here that's important for everybody to understand, that when you teach, Why do you teach? When you instruct, why do you instruct? Before that. That's hopefully what will happen in the process. But what did he say in the first part? Yeah, I'm doing this. I'm not trying to defend myself before you. God already knows, is what he says. Do you think that we excuse ourselves to you? Do you think it matters to us? No. What's more important to us, in the next phrase he says, we speak before God in Christ. We're accountable to him. You know, I've said that to people sometimes when I've moved to places and we'd be in a business meeting, or when they consider me to move to a work, and they would talk about work ethics, and I say, you know what, guys, as much as I'm interested in trying to work and do my best in your sight, I'm trying to please my God. He's the one I answer to. And that's what Paul's talking about. All this writing, it's like, you're really trying to think I'm trying to fix all this for your sakes? No. Trying to clear up this false accusation because I'm only thinking about you? No. It's God already knows. But why am I doing all this? You already answered it too. Why am I saying all this? To edify them. I want to build them up. I want to strengthen you, is what he's saying. But God already knows where I stand. And there's a comfort in that. And that's a priority every teacher needs to have. The priority is not the audience. The priority is God. And when you put it's like in a marriage. You see, my priority is to please my wife. My priority is to please my husband. No, it's not. Your priority is to please God. Now, guess what happens when you please God as a married person? What happens? Those things fall into place. And that's what Paul's saying here. He's saying, you know what, I'm teaching you guys, but I'm just trying to build you up. But you know what? As far as God's concerned, he knows, what I've done. And that's a good lesson for all of us as we strive to go through life, getting our priorities straight. Because everybody wants to be politically correct. I'm so worried about what everybody else thinks. Has anybody even stopped to think what God thinks? That's the problem today. I got into that discussion this week. You can talk about the divorce and remarriage and say, I just don't understand after 60 years, and tell somebody that they're not in scriptural marriage. Well, what does God think about it? Throw God into the equation. And especially back when it happened. All right. So that's what he was talking about there and speaking for their edification. Now, I like this. Look at verse 20. For I fear lest when I come, remember, he's planning on coming, I shall not find you such as I wish. How does he hope to find them? Yeah, people that have accepted the truth on the matter. Here as I hope. I hope that it's going to be that way. But there's a fear that when I come, I shall not find you as I wish, and that I shall be found by you such as you do not wish. What's that? What do you think?
They're not doing anything right. They're still looking down on Paul and listening to the false teaching.
Yeah, no, actually, Nancy, what he's saying here, now follow it through. I think you guys can get it. He says, first of all, when I come, I fear that when I come, you'll not find me, okay? I shall not find you such as I wish. Now, Paul has a desire, right? Okay, how to find them, their condition. And that I shall be found by you such as you do not wish. Now, I fear this, Trey.
You're not going to like what I have to say about it.
Yeah, you're not going to like it when I come. You're going to hope that my demeanor's changed. Because it will be changed if yours is changed, but if yours is not changed, you're not going to like it when I come. Like that, okay? Lest there be contentions, jealousies, outbursts of wrath, selfish ambitions, backbiting, whisperings, conceits, and tumults. Mark.
Because one thing I've always appreciated about Paul always had a good gauge on who his audience was, and the severity of the way that he behaved was directly related to what they know and what he knows that they know. Right. The way that he dealt with the Pharisees and the scribes, he didn't pull any punches with those guys because they knew that they were supposed to know.
That was it.
But you'll notice that when he was dealing with Gentiles initially, he was much more tactful and much more reserved. But now there was a point where, where you've been taught, you know what the truth is, and when we have a circumstance like this right here.
Well, you guys have heard me, I think it was even last Wednesday, we talked about the last week with Jesus, and we're talking about how the attitude towards him is increasing, the hatred is increasing in this last week, it was since the beginning of his earthly ministry. But I think we could do a parallel here, as far as when Paul first started the letter, in chapter 12, builds them up, right? I mean, he compliments them and commended them for receiving the brother and so on. But Paul gets more firm, if I can use it that way, more firm as this letter's coming to a climax here. You don't want me to come like this. I fear that when I come, you're not going to like, and I'm not going to like what I see. I just, hopefully that you've learned from all along all these things that I've been talking about up till now. And yeah, and Mark is right. And there's a lesson in that for us too when we're dealing with people and knowing what they're at in their background.
And that's kind of like when he said earlier, talking about, he wants to come to them that they turned away from the false teachers and that they're more willing to accept him coming in, and that they've turned back to the teachings of Christ rather than what the teachers, these other teachers want.
Well, and hopefully that's what's accomplished. In other words, you will have remembered all that I have taught you. When I come, yes, we received that letter, and when you do show up, you will see visibly. And that's what he's talking about here. We're about to get into that in the next verse. But he's talking about what is the root of it? What causes these problems? What's going to, in other words, I'm going to come and not see you as I wish to see you. Well, here's the heart of it. You're talking about the contentions, the divisions that exist within a congregation, that because of the jealousies and the outbursts of wrath and the selfish ambitions. Does that describe the false teacher at all? I mean, a false teacher, let's face it, the root of it, selfish ambition. That's it. That was the Pharisees. Selfish ambition. Their problem? They were losing the crowds. Jesus teaching, people are following him. They didn't care about the miracles. And that's the sad part. And these things that we're talking about here, guys, what makes these things so dangerous? Tell me. What makes these things that we just listed here in the last part of verse 20 so dangerous? Think about it. What makes them so dangerous if you have those qualities? EJ? Refuse to repent. And that's kind of the heart of it. When a person has these, it's that they're so blinded. That's the problem. And let me put it in a question form. Do you think it's possible that a person could have contentions, jealousies, outbursts of wrath, selfish ambitions, whisperings, conceits, and all that, and view themselves as godly individuals? It happens, Gene.
The church cannot grow under those circumstances.
It can. But see, that's the problem. They're not interested. They don't care, right? They don't care about growing. Or
Paul is.
Yeah, but Paul is. If you don't care about that, you might grow with other people that want to get caught up in that kind of stuff too. We're talking about profitable growth. I mean, there are religious groups that are growing today, aren't there? I mean, there's religious groups that are flourishing. They're growing as far as numbers. That's quantity. Is there any quality there? No. And that's the difference. And the thing for you and I is to be mindful of is that when we talk about this is what causes it. When people say to me, oh man, there's a church that had a problem. It really wasn't a doctrinal matter. It was more of a personality problem. Well, personality problems, if they exist within a congregation, do you think they relate to jealousies, backbiting? Yeah. Are those doctrinal matters? Yes. It's doctrinal matters, okay? That's what we're talking about here. And we need to see the severity of that. So now look what he does here. He closes out by saying in verse 21, lest when I come again, my God will humble me. Remember that lest. In other words, it starts back with verse 20, where he says, for I fear lest when I come. Okay, so he's not saying this is going to happen, but I fear that this could happen. So in verse 14, or excuse me, verse 21, lest when I come again, my God will humble me among you, and I shall mourn for many who have sinned before and have not repented of the uncleanness. So what he's obviously saying here is that when I come and see you, it will humble me. It will cause me to mourn because you haven't changed. I don't want that. And Paul isn't saying that I don't want to be humble when I come to you, but again, Paul is remembering his relationship with the Lord. And when he comes to them and finds them not being faithful, what's a danger that Paul could find himself in with his relationship with God? If he comes there and finds out they're not doing what he told them to do, what could happen? Picture yourself. How could you react? How might you react if you came, you were Paul, you come there, and if you're not mindful of God?
And your word.
Okay, I'm fed up with you, and I'm fed up with serving God because these kind of results, and then going beyond. Think of Moses for a moment. Kind of similar, right? Did Moses kind of get fed up with Israel?
Yeah.
And what did Moses end up doing? Struck the rock, didn't he? I mean, I'm just sick and tired of your complaining. And he strikes the rock when God said, speak to the rock. Do you kind of feel a little bit for Moses? I hope not.
Well, he also kind of created an equality between him and God. He said, must we.
And wouldn't that be a danger for Paul too? I mean, when Paul would come to them, I have told you, I presented it, I made it clear what these false teachers were like. I cleared up all the misunderstandings with there, and you're still acting like this, and then just let loose and be ungodly. Don't do it, Paul. And so Paul was saying that when I come, I may be humbled and mourn for you because he brings God into the picture. I am going to serve God no matter what, but I hope when I come and see you that you have repented, as he talked about here at the end of this. He says even before, when he says, if you have not repented of the uncleanness, the fornication, and the lewdness which they have practiced. Gene?
What Paul's doing is drawing a picture for them. He's not here. He's coming in a week or two or a month from now. This is what he's expecting. So they know what's going to happen.
I like it. And you guys got to remember, things are a little different today, right? I mean, things are really fast. I mean, how fast do you hear about news on the other side of the world? Instantly, right? How fast we heard about the attack in Paris. I mean, it was like, whoa. And, you can't drive there. Okay? I mean, it's a long way. And so when we think about Paul, this isn't overnight. And one thing I can learn from this is that Paul is saying, I'm coming. Now you have time.
Get your act together.
Yeah. When should they take care of it? Well, obviously now. You can't take care of this, or at least you're not going to take care of this when you find out, hey, his ship just came in. He's on the way up the pathway. We better do something here as a church. Oh, no. You get on this. That's why he's writing. He hopes when I come, I found that you have changed. And so I learned a lot about this. I understand that even within the local church, there needs to be time, but there also needs to be this idea of get on it. Get on it. Okay? Once you're aware of it, there isn't that to be that delay. And so Paul has been pretty forceful throughout this, but we know what kind of results he was expecting from the brethren. Now when we get into the 13th chapter, which we love, I mean, how many times have we quoted verse 5 in teachings, okay? Examining ourselves whether we're in the faith. And you can see now in the context of how it all fits. Paul having to defend himself, but again, within all of this, no matter what the brethren do there at Corinth, what's that going to do to Paul and his relationship with the Lord?
It shouldn't take him away from his relationship.
It should not. Does it change people, though? It most certainly does. And that's a lesson for all of us here. Okay? Lesson for all of us. Okay. Glad we finished that up, that we read last week. So 13, chapter 13, 1 through 6. And it's been a long time since we've started up at the front. And so we got 3 ladies here. Let's take 2 verses of peace. Start with Debbie and we'll go across.
This will be the third time I am coming to you. By the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses, every word shall be established. I have told you before, and foretell as if I were present the second time. Now being absent, I write to those of you who have sinned before, and to all of the rest, that if I come again, I will not spare. I will not spare. Since you seek a proof of Christ speaking in me, which to you, Lord, is not weak, but is mighty in you. For though he was crucified through weakness, yet he liveth by the power of God. For we also are weak in him, but we shall live with him by the power of God for you. Examine yourselves whether you be in the faith. Prove your own selves. Know ye not your own selves how that Jesus Christ is in you, except ye be reprobates. But I trust that ye shall know that ye are not reprobates.
Okie doke. Again, man puts the chapter division in here. Paul doesn't stop in his line of thinking. This whole responsibility that they have of making sure that their lives are right, not following the false teachers, rejecting the false accusations, making sure that they're serving the Lord. Again, this will be the 3rd time he mentioned that in verse 14. I asked you that last week. When was the 2nd time? And the answer was, we have no record of it, okay? We just know, right? I mean, Paul had to have been there a 2nd time. He was there the 1st time. We know that. He labored with the brethren for a number of years. And then he says, for this 3rd time, I am coming to you by the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses. Every word shall be established. Of course, we know how that was under the old law, to making sure that things would be confirmed by the witnesses that were there. Paul brings that up, that they would be aware of, because he comes right back with the affirmative that I have told you before, and foretell as if I were present the 2nd time. And now being absent, I write to those who have sinned before, and to all the rest, that if I come again, I will not spare. Remember what they accused Paul of? That was one thing. What else did they accuse him of, the false teachers? You know,
People not coming when he said he would.
that was one, okay?
That his writings were strong, but when he was there, he was.
Yes, that was it, you know. It's easy, and people like to say that. Oh, yeah, it's easy for him to say that. Well, bring him face to face and we'll see how he is. What's Paul saying? You know, Paul says, I got news for you, man. I am not going to spare you. It kind of reminds me of John dealing with Diotrephes. Remember what he said about Diotrephes? Anybody recall that? 3 John? When I come, I will call to mind his deeds, which he does. I mean, I'm going to confront him. What does it take to confront people? Backbone. What else does it take to confront people? True. That's true. But attitude, what's it going to take for you to confront somebody? Courage. What? Confidence.
Know what you're talking about.
Know what you're talking about. Another big one. There it is. Okay. Is there anything in this epistle, and even the epistle before, that gave you the impression that Paul didn't care for these brethren? Actually, the opposite, didn't he? I mean, we already spent that last week. Why wouldn't he take their money? He didn't want to be a burden to them, and they turned that against him. And even then, even though he explained all that, he said, even when I come, I'm still not going to take your money. I'm still not going to do it. First of all, I'm not going to take it just to appease the false teachers to begin with. I'm not going to give in to them. Folks, when you know you're right and you're standing for the truth, don't give in. Don't give in. Okay? Yeah, we can compromise in some areas, right? Not with doctrine, but I'm just talking about this whole idea of if it bothers somebody to do this, I'm not going to do it if it's going to bother them. You know, if it doesn't really matter one way or another. If it bothers you that I'm eating a steak, I won't eat a steak when I get home. The whole idea is that we have that love for one another. But when somebody is accusing you and trying to get other people to turn against you, you don't give in to their whims to appease them, because that doesn't help them grow. That's the point. You want the Corinthians to grow, and if he would have just said, okay, fine, it's okay for me to take your money anyways, I could have, because I took it from other congregations, but that doesn't help you, is the point. And so when he tells them, when I come to you, I'm not going to spare, why wouldn't he do that? Come on, Paul. Why not spare them? You spent enough time with them. You must have built up a rapport with them. Why not spare them?
It's kind of like if you say, don't do this, and the child does it anyway, say, well, that's okay. It doesn't really teach them anything. It doesn't really show them.
Okay, it wouldn't be teaching them. Why else? Why not would Paul spare them? He says, if I come, I'm not going to spare you. It's their soul, isn't it, Trey? I mean, the souls of these people. I mean, you'll be lost. If you're going to remain in sin, if you're going to, got to remember, when you believe false teaching, that Corinthian group cannot stand before God and said, well, they told us the wrong thing about Paul. Is that going to work? No. Why wouldn't it work, though? Because they must have been pretty persuasive, because Paul labored with them for over 3 years, built up a bond with them, called them his own sons and daughters. They must have been pretty persuasive. Why doesn't that work when we say, well, they told us this? They accepted it, and what else, Mark?
Well, I look at it this way. God's given us two very powerful tools. He's given us a mind that we can reason. He's given us instruction in his word. With those two together, we should be able to determine those situations.
You have no idea. Well, yeah, you do. I'm not using that sarcastically, but I'm going to say it anyways. Mark, you have no idea that statement you just made, because that's my whole sermon today and tonight. The ability to come to a proper conclusion. We have that ability. These brethren, you cannot say, well, they told us this. You had the ability to see through it if you wanted to. That's the key to all of this. None of us here has to believe blindly anything. None of us. We can seek it out. Chris mentioned in his prayer. Did you catch that in his prayer? And if we have any questions, if we have the courage, if we don't understand something, let's ask a question. But if you're, I don't understand what you're saying. I don't understand that. Ask. Just don't believe it because somebody said it. That's what they did. You have to seek it out. Now, a lot of people think that, well, everybody here believes because that's what they heard somebody else say. And so these people here are just all believing the same thing because of what somebody said. That's my sermon this morning, by the way.
We have to be careful. Sometimes it's easy to ignore a situation. If something's wrong, we don't want to get into that. We just kind of ignore it and break the law.
Yep. And obviously Paul wasn't.
That's the elder's responsibility, not ours.
Yeah, right. Sure. And of course our duty, bring it to their attention. Let's get on this. Let's go from there. Look what he says in verse 2. I have told you before and beforehand, as if I were present the second time and now being absent, I write to those who have sinned before, and again to the rest, if I come, again I will not spare. Since you seek a proof of Christ speaking in me, who is not weak towards you, but mighty in you. Okay. See, here's the thing. What he does here in verse 3 and 4, and I'm going to read verse 4 again. For though he was crucified in weakness, yet he lives by the power of God. For we also are weak in him, but we shall live with him by the power of God towards you. Paul here wants the brethren to understand the things that you demand of me to prove who I am. I'm not going to do, and you're going to see it as weakness. You're going to perceive it as weakness. Remember the people that yelled up to Jesus, if you're the Christ, get yourself down, right? By him not doing that, what did they perceive? They perceived weakness. See, when people demand stuff, hey, when they blindfolded Jesus, they slapped him. Hey, who just slapped you? Oh, you can't tell me? Well, that demonstrates this weakness that is there. Brethren need to understand what's weak and what's strong and how it all works in the life of a Christian. And the things that we demonstrate that the world might look as weakness, there is great strength revealed. Can you give me examples where the world looks at you in a situation and goes, man, what a weakling, and you are demonstrating great strength in the Lord? Give me an illustration. Jim?
Praying for some situation where someone might hear you and thinking, well, why aren't you trying to handle this yourself? Why are you going to God? That's a crutch.
Okay, there's one.
Yourself.
Okay, there's one. What about something that the world might expect you to do and you don't do?
Well, physically react.
Yeah.
Say you're walking in somewhere and somebody rubs shoulders with you really hard or something, they would expect you to turn around and say, excuse me, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like a fighting type thing.
I like that.
The old Tony would have done that. The new Tony doesn't do that. I mean,
He did it to me last week. I like it, Trey. I'll just use the word vindictive. Get even. The world will actually applaud you. They'll applaud somebody who will be vindictive. Get back at them. An eye for an eye kind of idea. How hard is it to not do that? It takes great strength. See, we're talking about the difference here, about being strong and being weak. And the world sees a weakling on the cross where you and I see tremendous strength of restraint when you could call down these legions of angels, but he didn't. And so the brethren here need to understand the things that you might demand and want to see or expect to see. What I did was the right thing. Going back of all the things that he's been talking about in this epistle. Since you seek a proof of Christ speaking in me, doesn't that seem kind of odd? Why would that seem kind of odd when Paul would say, and you wanted to be seeking a proof of Christ in me? Why would that seem a little odd that they would want to see that? Folks, why?
Because they've already seen it.
Over and over and over again. Guys, it hasn't been that long ago, well, maybe it has been, since we were in 1 Corinthians. In 1 Corinthians chapter 12, 13, and 14 dealt with what? Spiritual gifts. The spiritual gifts. The brethren at Corinth were fighting over them, were they not? Which one did they think was the best? Speaking in tongues, okay? And so we know that they had these different gifts there, all right? And so how did they get them? Through the laying on the apostles' hands, the Holy Spirit was given. And so they were not behind any, and of course we read that last week, you were not behind any church. You're not inferior in any way. What, because I didn't take your money? Of course not. And so you've seen it demonstrated over and over again when I preach to you and then with signs and wonders. I'm going to tell you because the brethren would have been just as wrong to believe Paul blindly as they would have believed in these false teachers blindly if they didn't see the evidence. Remember that. Yeah, there are false teachers out there, but I'm not asking you to reject the false teacher and just believe me. And if you believe what I say blindly, then you're just as wrong as believing that guy out there blindly. I'm saying you're going to believe what I say. If you see it in here, then you're believing what the Lord says. That's the whole point of this. You get that? That's the power of this. And so you want to see Christ's power demonstrated in me? You've seen it is the point. But what is it that they're demanding? They're demanding evidence, things that will satisfy who? Those guys I've been talking about all for months. Those false teachers that you think I should succumb myself to and just bow down to and do what they want. Who is not weak towards you, but mighty in you? Who is that? He says, for though he was crucified in weakness, yet he lives by the power of God, for we also are weak in him, but we shall live with him by the power of God towards you. We're weak in him? How are we weak? Are we weak in Christ? Are we weak in him? That's their terminology. That's their concept. Remember, as we're going through all of this, it kind of reminds me when the apostle also spoke about the idea of the wisdom of this world is foolishness of God. But if the foolishness of preaching, well, is that really foolish? No, but he's using it the way they use. You know, if the wisdom of this world, consider preaching the gospel foolishness. Well, I'll preach foolishness then. Well, is it really foolishness? No, but in their eyes it is. But I'll tell you what, through Christ we can be strengthened. Go ahead, Gene.
Well, if we're in a situation, somebody says, you know, you're just so weak, you don't defend yourself. You know, we're a Christian in Christ.
Right.
The way they would think that we would defend ourselves is not a Christian way.
Right.
But to them, we're weak.
It's it. I mean, turn around and cuss them out. Turn around and cuss them out. Lay into them. We want to reach people. Paul wants to help these people get to heaven is the point. Bottom line. He didn't write them off, which is a good thing for all of us to be mindful of. I know there are churches in the area that are off. Okay, they're doing things that are wrong. We want them to change. That's the bottom line. They have to. Will they? Chances are they won't. Okay, because what they think they're doing is okay. It's getting back to my sermon this morning. I'm telling you, every once in a while I come up with a couple of lessons that I think that you'd want the whole world to know, but it's going to help all of us. I've been doing a lot of thinking this week, and that's a lot for me. But just getting into this whole process of how we understand the scriptures. I'm giving you a preview of what we're about to study. Understand how to understand. It's the key, because do you ever hear people tell you that is your interpretation? Okay? Paul's here. You know, that's what you think. But Paul's trying to show them that, you know, this whole idea that that's my interpretation. No. It gets back to what Mark says. We have the ability to reason. We can come to a proper conclusion. That's what we're going to study today in a few moments. Paul is wanting them to understand all this. For we are weak in him, but we shall live with him by the power of God towards us. So therefore, examine yourselves as to whether you're in the faith. Test yourselves. How are you going to do that? How are you going to do that? Nancy?
I was going to say, you know, that they were talking about the false teachers kept saying things against Paul, but they never proved anything of what they were teaching. They could never prove anything or come to anything to show what they were teaching was right and that Paul was wrong. They were just saying things wrong.
Okay, so how are they? How would you and I, as he talks about here, he says, you examine yourselves as to whether you're in the faith. How are you going to do that? Pardon?
Study. Know the word.
Okay. So you got the knowledge. What else are you going to do? You need more knowledge. I mean, you can memorize this whole Bible. Remember, we're talking about examining yourselves whether you're in the faith. Okay? So how are you going to do that? Well, you're going to, you guys have been telling me, well, you're going to read. You're going to study. Okay. Okay, you're going to read. All right. But you examine yourselves whether you're in the faith. What you're going to have to do is you're going to have to compare. What are you going to compare?
The standard.
What are you comparing?
God's word.
To what?
Worldly stuff. Your actions.
Okay. You have to compare you, okay, you have to compare you with the Word. And included in that, of course, are your actions. So it isn't just study as we try to tell people. What's it going to take for you to compare yourself to the Word? What's it going to take? We're getting down to some hard stuff here. What's it going to take for you to do that?
Application.
Application, what? How about some honesty? How about some honesty, right? See yourself as you really, truly are, because I'm going to tell you, if you look from a distance, as Bette Midler was saying, there's harmony in the world, okay? But as you get closer, there's wars, right? And so So you're gonna need honesty. What else you gonna need? BJ?
I was gonna say the same thing simply.
Okay, but I'm talking more about how you are going to compare yourself to the Word and see it. Trey?
Or you have to be willing to change, because when you look at yourself and you're honest with yourself, you're gonna see where your error is when you're comparing it with the word.
So the willingness to change is the willingness to admit when we're wrong. Mallory?
I was just gonna say, you have to have humility to do it.
Got to be clothed with the humility. Absolutely. If you have this attitude, I'm already a know-it-all, already know everything, Trey.
And I think the problem that we have most is that we don't compare ourselves to the words, we compare ourselves to others.
There's no
We
question.
don't do that.
There's no. You know what? We could be doing this. I'm comparing myself to how you compare yourself to the Word. No. That's not how I'm doing it. Yeah, don't throw me into the mix. You know, Chuck's the standard. You know, Chuck is comparing himself by the Word. Therefore, I'll check. Compare. Boy, that seems like a good combination there, right? You know, if Chuck's comparing himself by the world, then I'll just compare myself beside Chuck. No. You compare yourself whether you're in the faith. You look at your actions. You have to be clothed with humility. Admit when you're wrong. All right. Have that courage and to see. And here's the thing. You must be willing to see everything. Everything. Parenting. Husband or wife. Citizen. Member of the church. Neighbor. Every aspect. I saw a hand. Dan.
I was to bounce off of that, Chuck. What I was going to say is that the easy comparison to make is to all the negatives, the things that we're told not to do.
Right.
You know, I mean, you know, whether it's lying or murder, any of those things like that, a lot of those are pretty straightforward. And it's easy to identify that yourself. But you were making this point about these roles that we're supposed to have and that we're supposed to do well in, and that's a lot broader. We have to really think about those. So, you know, am I a father? Yes. Am I doing a good job as being a father? You know, is God pleased in what I'm doing? To do that, it takes a lot more knowledge and a lot more study and a lot more focus to really tease that out. It's not a black and white, yes or no kind of thing.
And I like that, Dan, because what you're talking about, we only got a minute left, is that when I examine myself, is in every aspect of my life, question, is there room for growth? And so, do we examine ourselves and say, I'm going to start doing better here? I mean, in every aspect. Okay, I'm a good dad. I'm going to do better as a dad. I'm going to do better as a husband, as a wife. Better. All right, thanks, guys. I appreciate all that, and it's a good springboard for me to get ready for the sermon. Thank you. Yes, they do it.
How are you?